Tony Bouza began his career in the police in New York City. He came to Minneapolis in 1980 as chief of police, and for a memorable decade he did an effective job. He was very colorful and frequently quite outspoken. He went on to become candidate for governor of the state of Minnesota, not altogether successful there. He's done over the years many jobs in law consulting, and he's a multiple author. So I know that the vast majority of our viewers will recall this very delightful character. Tony, welcome. I'm so pleased you joined us.
Thank you, Roland. It's my pleasure.
Now, you told me before the show that you'll ask any question. It can be as tough as you want, but I shouldn't tell you anything about it ahead of time. So I'm going to start out with a relatively lighthearted one, and then I'll get tougher. Question number one. You grew up and worked in New York City prior to coming to the Twin Cities. What prompted your decision to remain here after your tenure as Minneapolis police chief? You could have gone back to New York City, many buddies there and so on. You elected to stay here. I'm hoping that it'll be a favorable response, that you like it here, but I will take whatever answer you give us.
Well, it's something I've thought about a lot. Nobody would live here for the climate. The climate is appalling. You get about 20 good days a year, maybe, and in Santa Monica, California, you get about 345. So it's not the climate. There are three reasons why I live here.
Yeah.
One is there's a lot of space. When you bunch people together, they become neurotic rats. That's what happens to people in the subway system in Manhattan. So there's a lot of space, and you can retreat into the space, and you can be comfortable, and that's good. The people are nicer. Because they have the space, they can afford to be nice, and if things don't go well, they can retreat into their space, and they have usually a park of their own. And then the culture is very accessible. You have wonderful movie houses like the Lagoon, where I go to see all these foreign films.
It's a great place, isn't it?
Yeah, theater. The restaurant scene.
The art scene.
Art scene, just amazing. So the space, the people, the culture, the restaurants, it's just a great place to live. And I can live anywhere in America. There's nothing to keep me anywhere. And I choose to live here. This is the best place in America to live. Just that simple.
So despite your somewhat adverse comments about our climate, I will be very appreciative of what you said about our wonderful lifestyle here.
True. Well, the climate keeps a lot of undesirables out.
It really does keep us a little more focused, doesn't it? Great. Okay, Tony, a little tougher now. So, Minneapolis has a crime problem which seems increasingly out of control. If you were police chief today, what measures would you recommend and implement?
Well, running a police department is a management task, and it means getting them to be more productive. Usually it means being unpopular. You have to do unpopular things. You have to make people work harder, faster, smarter, produce more. So let's acknowledge that for the decade that I was the chief, I was universally and uniformly and consistently hated by the cops. No doubt of it.
I read something about to that effect. You were not altogether popular.
And the reason was that I was making their lives uncomfortable. But I was very popular with the people who showered me with an undeserved affection. So what I would, you have to do three things to be an effective police chief. Managing the force to do three things: attack street crime, respond to emergencies faster. You know, 911 was one of the things I pushed for. And I once said, there'll become a time when no one will use, they used to say, what's 911? I said, day will come, no one will ever ask that question. So you have street crime, emergencies, and traffic safety. But the real problem of crime in America is a problem of poverty and race. And as long as we don't do anything about the plight of blacks in America, about the plight of poverty, universal health coverage, universal free education, and become a little more like Scandinavia, which we all profess to admire so much, crime is going to be devilous no matter how effective the police chief is.
But what about immediately? Granted that that is absolutely essential, but right now we're having all sorts of gangs fighting each other, there's murders and so on. What would you as police chief have to do tomorrow to sort of take care of this problem or attempt to alleviate the problem?
Well, if you want specifics, I would eliminate the millions being wasted on a civilian review board. That's a complete waste of time. Horse patrols are ridiculous. Any two-person patrol must be broken up into one-person patrol. They must work 8-hour tours, not 10-hour tours. At this moment, they work 10-hour tours 4 days a week. I would have them work 8-hour tours 5 days a week, and insist on productivity, insist on greatly increasing the number of arrests, prosecutions, targeting career criminals, and then reimpose something that they have abandoned, decoy operations, people simulating mugging victims, stakeout units, and
That's what you did in the Bronx, right?
and in Minneapolis. They abandoned them as soon as I left, as I knew they would. So you need you need to have a much more aggressive activity. One of the great unstated problems is that black leadership really resents overly aggressive policing because it targets too many black males. So it gets to be a very tangled racial question. So we need to bring more blacks into the middle class, into the police ranks, but we also need to
You
attack
made an effort
street
to
crime.
bring more blacks into the police, right?
I did and failed. I failed utterly. I think black leaders simply do not work hard enough to push young black men into the policing business.
We have time for one final question. And I know that you've been an author of multiple books. I was fascinated with one of your titles, which was The Decline and Fall of the American Empire and so forth. And that dealt with the corruption of the government. But what is your current title about? You're professing to put up another effort to get a publisher. What's the name of the book?
Well, I wanted to demonstrate to your readers, many of whom will say, gee, I ought to write a book. This is what it means. It took 2 years to do this. Each of these pages was typed about 11 times each.
And it's called?
It's called Expert Witness. And at the end of it, you spend 2 years, you type every page 11 times, you go crazy, and at the end of 2 years, you have no assurance it's going to get published. And if it does get published, you're not going to make any money out of it. Because if you look at the book that we're showing today, I got $2,500 in advance. That went in postage, telephone calls, duplications.
But it's the satisfaction of a creative accomplishment.
It's like having a child. You don't expect to make a profit.
No, but the ultimate satisfaction takes care of it, all the grief that you went through.
Yeah, it's gestation. It's parenthood.
A 2-year gestation period. I want to remind the viewers that Tony Bouza will be speaking at Ridge Point on June 19th, and it's going to be free and open to the public. I'm going to have more details later in the program with my postscript. So, Tony, thanks ever so much. I think that you're going to still have some more remarkable participation in your career.
Well, Roland, most people my age are dead, and probably deservedly. So every day from here on is pure profit.
Thanks a lot, Tony.